If you were hit and injured by a driver while walking in Florida, here's the reality. You may have multiple layers of insurance coverage available, even if you don't own a car. And in many cases, the driver is clearly at fault, but not always. So here's what you need to know if you're hit and injured by a driver while walking. First, is the driver at fault? In many pedestrian crashes, the answer is yes. Drivers in Florida have a duty to yield at crosswalks, use due care to avoid pedestrians, and to stay alert, especially in intersections and residential areas. Now, here's some common driver fault scenarios: failing to yield at a crosswalk, turning without checking for pedestrians, distracted driving, speeding through intersections, or running red lights or stop signs. But here's the key: Florida follows a modified comparative negligence standard. So, if the pedestrian was outside of a crosswalk, crossing against a signal, or wasn't visible enough, the insurance will argue shared fault. So, if a jury finds that you're more than 50% at fault, you'll recover nothing. And if partially at fault, your recovery is reduced. So, for example, if the jury determines your total damages are $100,000 but finds you 30% at fault, you'll only recover $70,000. Now, here's what most people don't realize: PIP insurance can still apply even if you were walking. In Florida, your own auto policy, PIP coverage, covers you as a pedestrian. If you don't have a policy, you may be covered under a household relatives policy or the at-fault driver's PIP policy. Now, PIP covers 80% of your medical bills, 60% of your lost wages, up to $10,000. But there are strict rules. You must seek treatment within 14 days, and the full $10,000 may require an emergency medical condition finding by a provider. So the bottom line, PIP is your first layer of coverage, even as a pedestrian, and even if you don't have a car or covered by an auto policy. Now, after PIP, the next step is a claim against the at-fault driver's bodily injury or BI coverage. This is where you can recover full medical expenses, future care, pain and suffering, and permanent injury damages, human damages. But here's the problem in Florida: drivers are not required to carry bodily injury coverage. And as a refresher, BI coverage is the at-fault driver's liability insurance that pays for the injured person's damages, such as medical expenses, lost income, and pain and suffering when the driver causes the crash. So in many cases, there may be low limits or no coverage at all. In that case, this is where uninsured or underinsured motorist or UM coverage becomes critical. UM can apply to you as a pedestrian if you have your own auto policy or you're covered under a household auto policy. UM will step in if the driver has no insurance or not enough insurance. And this is often the largest source of recovery in a pedestrian car crash case. Without UM, your options may be severely limited. Now, I've discussed what UM coverage is in a prior video, and I'll link it here in the show notes for you to check out. Now, insurance companies evaluate pedestrian cases based on liability, who will cause the crash, visibility, location of the pedestrian, medical treatment and consistency, severity and permanency of injuries, and available insurance coverage. They will aggressively argue that you weren't in a crosswalk, that you weren't visible, that you contributed to the crash. Their goal is to minimize and totally negate their driver's liability and exposure, not to make you whole. So the bottom line is, if you are hit by a car, by a driver, while walking in Florida, your case involves driver liability, PIP coverage, uninsured motorist coverage, bodily injury coverage. These cases are more complex than they appear, and that's why it's important to hire a lawyer as soon as possible after being injured. Now, I'm George Politis, a Florida personal injury attorney. I handle serious car crash cases across South Florida, including pedestrian injuries. If you've been hit by a driver while walking in Florida, know your rights, understand how PIP and insurance coverages apply, and take the right steps early to protect your claim.